Have you just got a jumping spider, considering getting one? Stick around for this video for some top tips for beginners and things I wish I'd known before I got mine. Hello everyone, welcome back to Spooderpods. I'm David and today I'm going to be talking about my top 5 things I wish I'd known before I got my jumping spider. There's lots of misinformation here, there's lots of good information out there, so hopefully some of these will help you if you're considering getting a jumping spider or if you just got one, and avoid some of the mistakes I made when I first got one. If you like invert content, please feel free to like, subscribe, comment, hit that notification bell so you see loads more content because I have lots more planned and it really helps the channel. Now, coming at number 5 of things I wish I'd known before I got my jumping spiders, they need lots and lots of space to explore. These guys aren't very large size-wise. However, just because they aren't very large, they need lots. That doesn't mean they don't need lots of space. My jumping spider Tank routinely explores the entirety of his enclosure. He loves walking around on the ceiling. He goes down to the bottom. He hunts. He explores. And for a tiny little guy, he really does get around. So you don't really want to skimp on the size of the enclosure. Generally, it's thought of something about 20 centimeters tall by 15 by 15 is about right. Maybe slightly on the smaller size, but you can get away with that, or bigger if possible. Don't want it too huge because obviously it maybe have problems hunting food, but generally that's quite a good guideline. Because they do love walking around, it's really fun for us to see them explore, so we want to provide them as much space as we possibly can. Similarly, don't forget that your jumping spider is arboreal, which means it likes to live in tree canopies, on branches, leaves, etc. So make sure you have lots of high up places for it to explore and enjoy. If you skimp on the high up locations, then your jumping spider may not feel as comfortable and it may just spend a lot of its time on the ceiling, and we don't really want to see that. We want it going all over the place. Now, number 4, there's a lot of debate around this. I'm going to go by what I have noticed and what other people have said, and that is your jumping spider does not really need a heat lamp or heat mat. Both will potentially dry out the enclosure, it will make the humidity just evaporate, and also it could potentially make them uncomfortable. Generally, you want your jumping spider to be at a decent temperature, so you preferably want to have a nice warm room or area for them. You could potentially maybe have like a hot water bottle or heat pad outside the enclosure to increase the general temperature, but you don't want a direct heat source because it can be dangerous for them and not very good. They do tend to be more active when they're warmer, but it's better to provide them that heat in other ways. Similarly, they kind of need a light as well. Now, again, this one's up for debate, but I have noticed if you can't provide a nice sort of like daylight setting for them where it's reasonably well lit room, it's nice to get them a nice light because they rely on their sight for hunting. Again, if you've got a very well lit room, that light could be off most of the time, but when it is darker, especially during winter months, that light would be very useful for them. Coming at number 3 of things I wish I'd known is make sure that you leave a space for their web on the top of the enclosure. If you've got a top opening enclosure, you have to be ultra careful because you could disrupt that web, disturb it, which will cause your jumping spider stress. Generally, it's better to have a side or front opening enclosure, but if you can't do that, then maybe you can make some adaptations. They generally like to make their webs in the top of their enclosure and usually in the corners or towards the middle back. I've noticed from what other people have seen and what my own experiences are. It's really important that you let them have that web. It's kind of like their home, their bedroom, so you want to leave it stable and safe so they can feel stable and safe in their environment. And it's especially important, which will lead on to my next point, during molting. Number 2 is don't disturb your jumping spider when they're molting. It can be a bit of a stressful time for us because especially if you're new, you'll think, oh my goodness, not eating in ages, they're acting a bit strangely. But it's perfectly normal for them. Molting is a completely natural process, so it's something they'll do, but they may not eat, they may act a bit differently, and it's really important to be respectful of that. So if your jumping spider is spending lots of time in their web, you can still offer food initially if they're still coming out, but later on you just want to stop offering food for a while until they start coming out and they've molted. You can spray near the web to provide a water source, just so they can come out if they need a drink, because sometimes what we notice with Tank, he would like to do that. It's also important not to feed them straight after they've molted because they're still hardening up and they may not be able to deal with their prey. So give it a bit of time and don't panic when they are molting because it's completely normal. My number 1 top tip is be patient, and jumping spiders will not always eat on your time scale. They generally will eat when they want to, and you have to be kind of careful how much you feed them because it's quite easy to overfeed them as well. Generally, a good line and rule is that the abdomen should be about the same size as their torso, their front head section. If it's getting too big, you want to hold off on feeding for a while. If it's too small, you want to encourage them to eat, with molting being an exception. So they can go quite well without food, so there's no need to panic. But at the same time, you just don't want to be constantly giving them food like you would of another pet because that can be no good either. So guys, that brings me to the end of the video. If you have any tips for beginners that you feel I've missed out, love to hear from you in the comments. Hopefully I've helped you if you are new to jumping spiders and you'll miss some of the pitfalls that I fell into. Excuse the noise in the background, the birds decide to be noisy. But in the meantime, hope you enjoyed the video, take care and see you later.